Yes,
Yes, I can.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. So I think we've given it 2 minutes. Hopefully, most of the people who wanted to join have joined. So yeah, thank you so much, first of all, for everybody. Yes. So as I was saying, thank you so much for joining us for this event today. Today we've compiled a very special event with two very special speakers, one who's a book coach and one who's a publisher. And yes, I just wanted to start with a question a lot of you might already be asking yourselves, that, at some point in your career, you've probably had the thought, should I write a book? Maybe it's about the industry you've spent decades in, a turning point in your life, or something you've learned that you wish someone had told you earlier. And then life happens and that idea sits there. Today's session is for that idea. We've brought together two people who work with exactly this. Professionals like you at exactly this stage who've turned their thought into an actual published book. We're going to talk about how it starts, what the process really looks like, and what a book can do for you once it exists, as a piece of legacy, as a credibility signal, and as the start of a new chapter. So, introducing both of our wonderful speakers, I'll start with Nidhi. Nidhi Mishra, who is the founder, CEO of Bookosmia, India's largest publisher for and by young people, for 150 plus locations, disrupting the Indian publishing industry. She is an IIM alumni, a math honors graduate, a Six Sigma black belt, and an ex banker who quit as VP in HSBC to pivot to entrepreneurship. A TEDx speaker, Nidhi has been an advisor to IIT faculty on developing science-based augmented reality apps, on the board of the Singapore-based International Journal, and partner to some of India's most significant organizations in the impact sector. Nidhi's pioneering efforts in bringing publishing to young people, driving inclusion, mental health advocacy, um, entrepreneurship have led her to be invited to international universities like Stanford and Vanderbilt, Tennessee, and at various IIMs in India. Wonderful to have you on board with us, Nidhi. Going to Shradha. Shradha Biyani is an editor, book writing coach, and founder of Tashi Press, Singapore. She's trained as a journalist and has a master's degree in urban planning from Harvard University. She has collaborated with dozens of independent writers and publishing houses such as Penguin Random House, Pat Macmillan, and Westland Books. She also facilitates journaling and writing workshops called the Yarning Circle. Her writing has appeared in Harvard Design Review, Hindustan Times, India Today, Men's Health, Goya Journal, and Undertow, among other publications. She lives with her family in Singapore. So, thank you again, wonderful speakers, for joining us. But before we dive in, I would like to share a quick snapshot of everybody has answered three registration questions here. So, just a quick snapshot of what that entailed and how that goes. I'll just give me 1 second. I'll just share my screen. Swati, can you just share your screen with that? Either ways, in that snapshot, it basically showed that 80% of you who have joined have already thought about sharing your story or writing a book. And when we asked what's holding you top answer was simply not knowing how the process works. Not time, not confidence, just not knowing where to begin. So today's conversation is really for you. Nidhi is going to start us off by showing that this is more achievable than it feels, and Shraddha will walk us through exactly how the process works. So, with that, Nidhi, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mansi. I hope I'm clear and audible.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, lovely.
Yes.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. For one, I would love to start by sharing that I absolutely admire this community called Wisdom Circle. I'm very conscious of the distinction between being intelligent and being wise, thanks to reading some philosophy, but more often than not being drilled in by elders in the family when we were we ended up doing things which they didn't approve of. I so clearly remember that line: intelligence can come from reading and cracking exams, but wisdom can come only from living a fuller life with real experiences. So very glad to be here with all of you, soaking in all of this wisdom. I hope this conversation is worth your while, and thanks for sharing the snapshot. So, a very surprising kind of takeaway from the survey, because it looks like everybody's very set and ready, at least the very common issues of who's going to read my story and why should I write it. Those are not the very apparent ones. I'd love to start by I'm going to talk about a few things. So if you could just go to the next slide. Yeah. I'm hoping to take quick 5 minutes to cover why are we talking about stories? Why are we talking about now? And thanks, Shradha, for helping out with those prompts when we were putting this together. And I'd love to share a few profiles as well of authors who, as per our stereotypes of authors, would be very unlikely. So hopefully that should get all of us more motivated. Starting from the first principles of publishing, I would love to underline the power of stories and who's telling them, especially for this audience, which is not a classic full-time author, full-time storyteller kind of a group. But very often the word story is kind of misunderstood. We think of it as fictional or fantasy tales. I'm using it as a moniker for any kind of content, right? We live in a content age. So very often we think it is something which is confined in a book, for example, or we read something and we close the button or finish a book and we're like, we're done with it. But stories are so much bigger than these box formats. They're quite limitless. They're always around us and we are consuming them constantly, whatever form of content, but it is shaping us in so many ways, from the cereal we buy to the schools we send our kids to holidays, or who we want to be when we grow up, or what we don't like in ourselves. So much so that I remember the historian Yuval Noah Harari talking about humans' ability to tell stories as the biggest reason why we dominate the rest of the species in the world. The idea that we can build a collective imagination. So I think from all of this is very clear that stories control the narrative around us. And if that is so clear, then why is it that for the longest time, very few people got to tell them? So, in a traditional publishing world, the idea of an author was someone who could write creatively very well, had excellent credentials, elite education, a good command on language, syntax, grammar. However, that left out a very large number of us from sharing our own experiences, which absolutely deserve to be heard. So that is why we're talking about it now, because the world of publishing has transformed, and thankfully so. With a lot of niche players, we're going to talk more about what kind of publishing options exist. But there are people who are very accommodative to help you get your ideas out, right? And now, kind of touching upon why it's useful for a business leader like all of you. And for myself, I've experienced it personally. One of the most dreaded questions I have when I walk into a new set of people is, so tell us about what you do. Or, when you're striking a new partnership and you have to sum up very quickly what is your work about. And, you can feel the cogs in your brain running, trying to figure out how can I most efficiently and at the fastest make sure that my credibility and my introduction walks into the room a lot before I do. And I think that's where we've seen books come into handy for a lot of our authors. It's pretty much like your business card. So all of us Google the person we are going to talk to, we're going to meet. And the moment you see the first search results come up, all of us end up kind of cataloging them as, oh, she's an advertising guru or he's a financial industry expert. And half our work of establishing our credibility of our thought leadership is done. So certainly very welcome that there's this whole change in how the world of publishing is ensuring that very diverse voices come to the fore. And now I'd love to just take a few minutes to share some unlikely authors, because for many of us, when we think of authors, we have images of these best-selling authors at lit fairs who are talking about their book very passionately and very eloquently, come into our mind, or they have spent all their life writing and studying writing. So if you could just quickly come to the to the next slide, please. Yes. So here are some real people so that all of us can see and kind of, find relatability if we can. The first one on the top left, Aditi Soumya Narayan. So she's one of our favorite. She's a third time author with us, a young girl whose first book with us hit Amazon new release in the US. She's won many awards like the Times Author Award. In India, she has been noted as the top change maker by various reputed organizations like Tata Steel or Deccan Herald. She's even presented at the UN, and she identifies herself as an author. The reason I have her up here on the screen is that Aditi is also a non-speaking autistic who does practically zero socializing outside of, her life is about writing at home. So a lot of, our ideas, oh, I can't speak well and I won't be able to market my book. I don't have those connects and all. We found them busted so well with Aditi, who continues to write. She's just released a third book, and I feel like that's a perfect example of someone who is not a classic stereotype of an author in our mind. I'd move on to on the right side, you'd see this person, Anil, the author. He's writing at the airport, he's signing his books. So, another very interesting profile, because Anil here, he has been at a CXO level for L'Oreal at APAC. Two of these authors live in Singapore. But he chose to write about nothing to do with his career. He instead invested his time, many years, in collecting his thoughts on the Ramayana being a tool for leadership lessons for CXO level folks. So amazing there again, because it's a choice he made. He didn't want to play to his functional expertise. And a good one, I'd say, because for writing your book, which is a longer process, and Shraddha is going to talk about it. It is very important that you're passionate. It shouldn't feel like work. If you're not close to the findings you want to share, it'll seem like work. You'd see a small chart there, which is just for us to show you about his social media reach. Having written the book, how he's emerged as a thought leader on LinkedIn with a growth of around 9,000% over 1 year. He has 1 million impressions now. So again, a very unlikely author did not come from a place of great creative writing, but was passionate about his subject and saw it through. The third profile, which is Prashant's on the bottom left. So this is your classic, very well established name in financial industry, kind of pulling everything together so that he can have in one place all endorsements and credibility he's built over the years. He's a Harvard MBA. The book was illustrated by New York Times Tom Fishburne and has endorsements from Wall Street Journal's international editor, Closer to Home, by various CEOs and Mr. Nidhi Mishra and the likes. But this pretty much is an example of someone who said, oh, I'm very good at this. I've done this all my life. And now I want to package it as something which I want to take to. And in his case was women who shy away from financial planning, because that's how we have unfortunately stereotyped them. Many of these decisions are not theirs. For young people to start early, and for people like us who think, oh, it's too late. So he's talking to everybody out there. It's not, but he is the expert. So it's amazing how well his book has done. And the last one, which is on the bottom right, is another very favorite example, because this has nothing to do with any industry expertise. And very often I saw the responses as well, where people were asked, what do you want to write about? And many of you said life experiences. You didn't choose to keep it industry specific. So Deepa here actually wrote a book on the passing away of her mother. She took a year and a half, underwent a lot of book coaching and, writing guidance. And she talks about how that was therapeutic for her to dealing with loss, finding herself in this new light. As you can see, she's not a very, very young person. She's not in her 20s, but she was open and honest about how losing a loved one led to something inside which felt like I need to share, otherwise I'll choke on it. So these are four authors. I'd love to say that, oh yeah, I can actually confirm that all of these books are Amazon number one bestsellers. So they started off from a journey of not being your typical writers. Every metric doesn't have to be about sales in publishing anymore. So you choose to write because you feel like writing. You choose to write because there are readers you think will benefit from it. I saw absolutely amazing responses on what you want to write about. So I hope you take that journey forward. At this point, I'm going to pause and hand over to Shraddha because she's spent a lot of time coaching people from start. So she can walk you through the details of how you go about this journey.
Hi everyone. It's so exciting to be here and to talk to all of you about your book dreams. Thank you, Mansi, for that lovely introduction, and thank you, Nidhi, for these really lovely, inspiring stories of unlikely authors. I hope everyone's already excited about pursuing their book dreams and getting started as soon as this session is over. A little bit about myself. I'm a book writing coach and editor, and I run my company Tashi Press out of Singapore, but I work with authors all over the world. I am a trained journalist, pastry chef, urban planner, and I started my publishing career over a decade ago. And true to the snapshot that Swati shared earlier, even though there is a ton of information out there about writing and publishing your book, I know firsthand, having worked with lots of authors, that there is still a lot of confusion about writing and publishing your book. It still seems very daunting and opaque for some reason. So for over the next 10 minutes, I will try my best to simplify and demystify this process for you. Next slide, please. So these are the 6 broad stages that every published book goes through. You start with writing your book. You have to edit it. That's where the magic happens. Then you need to submit it, publish it, market it, sell it. These are roughly the 6 stages. They don't necessarily happen in a linear fashion, but more or less this is how you can track it. I will cover the first 3 stages, that is half of this writing journey, and then I'll hand it back to Nidhi, who will help you understand how publishing, marketing, and selling your book works today in 2026. Next slide, please. Stage 1, writing. Writing is hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to mince my words. Okay, writing is torture, especially for writers, which is why there are hundreds of books on the art and craft of writing by writers. And it's a whole genre onto itself. Because even though every book starts with an idea, but an idea alone, no matter how great it is not enough. You have to sit down at your desk for hours and hours and hours. You have to struggle to find those words to give life to your idea. You need to shape it into some sort of a structure. You need to back it up with research. Whether you're writing nonfiction or you're writing a novel, you need to do research so that your book feels grounded. And your idea needs to have enough depth and enough width for it to be a book length manuscript as opposed to a long essay or an article. Another thing to keep in mind in the early stages of writing is that ask the right questions early on. Many authors I work with, before they have committed a single word to paper, will ask me, who's going to read my book? Who's going to publish it? Who's going to pay for it? How do I market it? I'm not a great writer. I don't know how to speak in public. And this is what I tell them, that I don't know who will read your book because you haven't written your book yet. So these questions are valid, but they are valid for a later stage. The questions to ask early on is, what's my story? Why does it matter to me? Why should it matter to someone else? What do I know? What is the wealth of experience that I bring? And what do I want to know? What are the big questions that are keeping me up at night? These are the right questions to tackle early on in your writing phase. And the third thing is exactly to echo what Nidhi said, that it's rarely about talent. There are great writers who have brilliant ideas twice a day, but they end up writing only a fraction of all those brilliant ideas and giving it the shape and form of a book. Because writing a book ultimately is a sport in stamina and perseverance. It is the ability to overcome that daily resistance that we face and all sorts of writer's blocks, and just sit at your desk and get that draft done. This is when a writing coach or a writing community, or even just, like a writing buddy, a partner, someone who can keep you accountable, is really helpful, so that they can make sure that you keep going when the going gets tough. Next slide, please. The second stage is editing. There's this saying in publishing circles that books are rewritten, not written. No book is great in its first draft. In fact, the first draft is very often called the shitty first draft, because the idea then is to not write a dazzling book with great prose, but to just get your ideas down on paper in whatever form or words that it takes. It takes multiple rounds of editing, rewriting, revisiting to take a book from a rough first draft to average to good to great. So this is a very boring phase to come back to your first draft and to try to make it better, which is where professionals and editors come in and they can help you. Now, there are different types of editing. There's personal editing, which is something that you do with your own draft. After you finish that shitty first draft, you take a few days or weeks off, and then you come back to your book, which is when you'll be able to get some distance from the book to see the narrative gaps in your story, to see the highs and the lows, the ebbs and the flows, and where the story is lagging, and then you can come back and tighten it. After you've done that yourself, that is when you bring a professional editor in. If you work with a publisher, they will help you do it. If you decide to self-publish, it is always worth your time to invest in working with a professional editor, because an editor can see what you can't see. You are too close to your own manuscript. You're too attached to your material to kill off your darlings, as they say. You might have written up a great character or a great passage, a beautiful sentence, but if it does nothing for your book, then I'm sorry, they have to go, and a good editor will help you do that. The third stage is submitting them. This is the time when you start thinking about your publishing options. Now, I will let Nidhi go into the details of every publishing pathway that is available to you right now. But broadly, there is traditional publishing, there is hybrid, and there's self-publishing. All three have their pros and cons. There are trade-offs of control, of rights, of cost, of reach, of quality, and Nidhi will walk you through those. And there is also a lot of information available online. It's always a good idea to educate yourself before you make that decision. But no matter how you choose to publish, it is a great idea to think about how you want to position your book. Because for the next few months, maybe years, you're going to be talking about your book constantly to everyone. And you need to have your elevator pitches ready. What is your book? What genre it is? If I walk into a bookstore, in which section will I be able to find it? Who is it for? Where can I find those audience members? Where can they find my book? Why does it matter now? These are questions that it's best that you clarify to yourself early on. And because when you are clear about it, and that is when you can communicate your idea really clearly to literary agents, editors, publishers, speakers, the right audience for your book as and when you find them. Next slide, please. So at Tashi Press, what I offer, and as Nidhi said that, fortunately now you don't have to do this whole writing publishing process alone. There are professionals who are ready to help you at every step of the journey. So at Tashi Press, I offer services that fit around your writing goals and your lifestyle, your schedule. Because I know everyone's really busy these days and a book dream remains a bucket list item. So you need, if you feel like you need someone to help you through it, this is when people like me can step in. I offer one-on-one coaching. So wherever you are in your writing journey, whether you're at an idea stage or a half-finished manuscript stage, I can come in and help you get to the finish line. Tashi Press, we offer all kinds of editing services from big picture to the tiniest detail. And in addition, if you decide to work with a traditional publisher, I can also help you put together your book proposal and your submission package. And the third service we offer is book designing. If you decide to self-publish, so with your cover design, typesetting, interior pages, different formats to help you bring your book to the world. I know we are running over time, so I will try to keep this short. This is, these are some people very much like you who 2 years ago were questioning that, I'm carrying this book in my head and my heart. Will I be able to write it? And I have worked with them. These books have come out between 25 and 26. The first one and the second one, these are business books, both CEOs, founders who have brought in the wealth of their decades of work experience and distilled them into like these lovely readable books. And the last one is a cancer survivor, and she started writing as an outlet during her chemotherapy, and I met her at the end of her chemotherapy, and I helped her put together this lovely book. And I keep going back to what Nidhi said, because she said everything so beautifully, that sales is not the only metric in publishing. Christina, she wanted to write this book for her friends and family as a way to remember her after she's gone. And that's all. She published 500 copies of her book and gifted it to everyone. And every book dream is valid and legit in this room. Don't hesitate and start writing. And Nidhi and I will be around to answer your questions later. But for now, I will hand it back to Nidhi to talk to you about various publishing pathways.
Yes. Thanks, Shraddha. I think those stories were like people who've chosen to write, especially the last one was so, so powerful. I think set the stage for everybody here. Shraddha did speak about these three kinds of publishing options that are there for any author at any time. The first one, traditional, is how publishing has been with the big publishers, the old school publishers, where they commission the work, and she spoke about how they also help you package and pitch it to traditional publishers. So this is where you are not putting any money of your own. You are proposing that your particular manuscript be taken up for book publishing. The publishing house incurs all the costs, whether it is about printing, it's about getting your book ready in shape. And the traditional publishers have a huge distribution network, which ensures that your book is present in all kinds of stores. This is something that's been there, like many publishers are there for hundreds of years. So the value here is not so much in agility, not that you'll get a response the moment you submit it, but if your book is selected, it is something they are going to run with and promote. All your big authors, very well-known names would typically be sitting in traditional publishing because they have already established their credentials as authors. So a publishing house would be keen to have them come in. Royalties are typically much lower. The other two incentivize purchase through offering higher royalties because you're putting in money in the two. And I'll come to that. I'd love to talk about self-publishing first, which is the third one here, which pretty much, as one can understand, is for people who want to go very low. They have something to say. They don't want to take a big bet on it. They don't want to go full blown by spending more money on it. They think, I have a story, I've written it out. I just need to have it out there. So self-publishers will take whatever you give them and publish it. There is a lot of significance of editing in traditional and hybrid, but there, for example, editing will not be an option that they will offer, or they may say, but this is not the core of what they do. So if you want to write a book and say Earth is the first planet from the sun, that's how your book will come out. Nobody's going to sit there and fact check it. Um, a lot of very low pricing options exist in self-publishing. It's just about getting a book out. There are packages which they will sell to you and talk about how we can get your book at certain stores through our distribution network. But the core offering is that at the cheapest possible, you are having your word out there. A lot of marketing is still to be done by yourself. So if you are new to how to go about book marketing, and book marketing, unfortunately, is very different from all other industry marketing. So if that is not your comfort area, either you buy a package from them where they start promoting your book, but every service will be charged. And second one, hybrid. As with everything else, hybrid publishing is a little bit of this and a little bit of that on both sides. So these are paid publishing packages. It may start with book coaching, editing, etc., all things that Shradha spoke about. We at Apricity offer the same to thought leaders. But here is someone who's very invested in your idea. So they are as much, there is a skin in the game for them. They ask you for payments. Everything is very well laid out. It's a bridge between traditional and self, because here the idea is to try and make the book something big. It's not that it'll just get lost in a sea of content by listing on Amazon. So for example, the books that I showed, they all have been optimized on Amazon for its marketing. There's a dedicated team which makes sure they hit certain milestones the moment you have them out. You have your social media going, you can get PR and coverage. The idea of building you as a thought leader, for example, needs various channels talking about your book. And will work in turn with distributors to get some kind of physical distribution reach in stores. In international, both self and hybrid offer you as well, listing your books on Ingram, some of you would know, which will make sure that it's not just limited to one particular country where you are going out on Amazon, for example, which is where most number of books are bought, but listing it, ensuring it's on 14 other countries that, wherever English, for example, is being read. So there are many options, from your PR, media management about your book, getting you on podcasts, speaking opportunities, all of that. That is where hybrid comes in. It still needs an investment, unlike traditional. And it is not as cheap as self-publishing, because you have, say, best-in-class editors looking at your book and saying, hey, we need to change this. You have someone fact-checking it. You have someone proofreading it. You have, a lot of option of going back and forth on designs and covers and saying, no, I don't like this, which is not something which is available in self-publishing. So pretty much it's a spectrum. Self-publishing is like a self-serve model. You go ahead, you're confident. I just want to do this much for now. I'm very new, don't want to spend money. So that's your option. Hybrid is where you care about having a great content piece out, but having more control over it. And then traditional is your classic publishing, where the publisher has to choose if they want to roll with it or not. Even for the books they choose, marketing is not by default. It's not like every book is marketed by a penguin. They also have their own criteria, and they'll say, these are my top books. This is my marketing budget for them. I'll do print runs for so much. But that is something which is your very classic traditional publishing. So, yeah, I think that kind of covers everything. I saw a question on the chat about legal and rights. So the author always retains the copyright for the text. That is standard offering across. If you've written the book, it is rightfully yours. So just wanted to answer that. I think it's agnostic of the publishing, the format you roll with, the vendors you go with. Yeah, I hope this helps. Are we happy to talk about what else we have on the agenda, or if we're taking questions?
Yes. No, thank you so much, Shraddha and Nidhi. I think this was wonderfully helpful for people who are just starting out on their book journey, and just defining the process so eloquently really helps with things. So, I actually have a couple of questions for the both of you, and hopefully, it will help our audience as well. So, to Nidhi, why are stories important and who gets to share them? I think you've answered that a bit in the beginning,
Yes.
but
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I started with that. I feel like very often we do underplay the power of stories, especially many of us who, come from functional fields. We see it as a creative outlet and not something perhaps I'm used to say as a banker or someone who works in the technology field. And we may not assign as much importance to them. But in the world that we are living in, where the content is all around us, everything that we are doing is kind of being shaped by someone else's ideas. And we read about something and then immediately, it informs. There's an author who very beautifully said that it's always like a slow leak into our mind. We may shut the book or we may close the window of the blog, but it is constantly informing and shaping our narratives. So there is a lot of power of stories, and stories necessarily do not need to be fictional only when we think of it. I can talk, for example, one of my most favorite kind of genres to look at is where you can share some tips for someone who's coming up in a particular field. So we have for example one a person who runs an advertising agency, and he while having won awards at Cannes and all, he's still choosing to write about advertising first 3 years that you should know as a junior. And when he came to us, I was like, it is so specific. I don't know how we can sell this book. It's not even for all advertisers. But that is his idea. He feels that will help someone. And he's right, because when he takes this book to colleges or he's speaking to people who just started on advertising, that is his storytelling, which is going to help them make better decisions, because he comes from a point of view that there's very high attrition in early years in advertising. And that's because no one is helping them out with that information. So I think it's something which is as good for us as a creative outlet for our mental health, but very often it can make for great reading for the other person or help them shape their view as well. So yes, I'm a big believer in the power of sharing your stories.
Right. No, wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And just building on the same question, this question would be to Shraddha. Given that everyone has a story worth telling, I think as we've established, how is writing a book actually different from writing, say, blogs or articles, which are the norm right now, so to speak?
A blog or an article is a small digestible idea that, it's a single idea that can be absorbed over a cup of tea. You can write it and edit it over a couple of sessions and share it with the world. A book, on the other hand, is when you have a much bigger, deeper, sustained idea that is supported by multiple big and small ideas. Whether you're writing nonfiction or a novel, you have a main plot and then you have a lot of subplots and other characters supporting the narrative. And this story develops over multiple chapters. It is defended over tens of thousands of words, and all of these chapters have to work individually and together. It's like creating a symphony. So and it takes a lot of time and patience and research and structure to write and develop a book. Also, a book is more permanent. Once it's out in the world, it's there. We are still reading books that were published 300-400 years ago. And so the stakes are higher, the bar is higher. And also what it does to you as a writer when you write a book, and what it does to your readers, I would just say the stakes are higher. And these days, I want to say very often we read books where we feel like, oh, this could have been an article or just a long essay. And sometimes we read a long essay and we're like, oh, I wish the author had gone deeper. And I wish this were a book. So this is one of those questions to ask yourself early on. And they're both valid mediums of telling your story. You just have to choose which story demands a container that is big or small.
Right, right. And building on that question, I think when you're actually in the process of writing a book, what is the biggest misconception, according to you, that first time authors have about needing an editor for themselves?
Um, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that an editor is only there to fix your typos and grammar. And actually, that is far from the truth. As I mentioned earlier, in reality, editing is where the transformation happens of, a rough, shitty first draft into a tight, well told, genuinely compelling, unputdownable book. The sort of like the shaping and the shining, polishing of the diamond. That is what an editor does. And the other misconception is that only first time or inexperienced writers need editors. In truth, every writer, no matter how skilled you are, needs an editor, because the distance that an editor provides from your material, that is the real value of that relationship. I want to say that every editor is a good writer, but not every good writer is an editor. Editing is its own specialized skill.
That's actually quite interesting to hear, and I do agree with that misconception that people have. On that note, I think just coming to publishing, we had some interesting questions from the audience. One was Mr. Wag actually had a question on the publishing industry as a whole and how it's changing. And he's basically saying that the publishing industry is changing as they have surplus capacity and reducing demands, forcing them to look for and create new players to participate into the system of consuming what they produce. So, is that a fact or is that a misconception?
Yeah, I think that is not a fact because we are seeing more and more books being coming out every year. So if I can take the example of the US, which is the largest book market, it saw 32% growth. It has seen between the last year and this one. Number of books we are looking at is like 4 million. So yeah, I think that perception is perhaps shaped by the fact that not a lot of us are reading more. So that is where you would be thinking that books are not doing as well. We are not seeing books in people's hands. But I would like to say that people are writing more. So that for sure, these the new ideas which have come on whether it's self-publishing, which is a very big market of the trade section, or it is the idea of business leaders writing their books. So all of these, with a lot of help from people, you have teams now who are managing. And I also think a lot of these are very new companies. So if I just take the example of two of us on the call, I don't come from a Penguin or a HarperCollins. I was a banker till I felt I want to start a journey in entrepreneurship, which is about content. I know a lot of partners I work with in the same profiles are companies like Pratilipi, which is a huge self-publishing in India, which is the largest here. These are larger media companies which evolved from something and went on to become something else. Of course, the larger and old traditional publishers have rolled out their imprints as well. So there are imprints which cater to business leaders, may have some paid concept, but most of it continues to be coming from this idea of let's disrupt something, let's do something different in this very old industry. So both on counts of books being produced more, perhaps read less, but being written more, opening up the field for so many players. I think there is a lot of innovation which is coming in.
Amazing. And is our sort of digital
Actually,
books taking?
sorry.
Sorry, go on, Shraddha.
I think I want to add that people are definitely writing more, but I do think that reading is also happening, and it is not as it hasn't gone down as much as we like to think, because I see children who are big readers. Parents these days are very conscious about like raising readers and giving them access to great books. Schools are encouraging reading. I think that is a really great and hopeful sign that these people will go on to continue reading. Parents are trying to be better role models and trying to read more with their children. And I think in my line of work, I keep bumping into very passionate readers. There are book clubs and book communities, and online and offline. There are so many literature festivals happening. So I think books have gone from being a very sort of like private source of entertainment to a very public, shared social activity. And I also think that this digital fatigue is quite real. People are looking for offline, in-person human experiences and human stories. So I am quite hopeful actually that reading is not dying, not yet.
Of course, I'm an avid reader myself, so I definitely hope not. Yeah. So I think there are some questions about AI and how it's been a disruptor in all industries right now. So would love to know from the both of you how AI is disrupting the authorship and publishing market, and if it is in fact a helpful tool or it can be a liability.
Uh, I grapple with this monster every day at work. And I think about it a lot. I do think that AI is very helpful in some parts of writing. So, in late stage brainstorming or deep research or fixing your grammar and typos, I think AI is very helpful. But I think where AI can hinder authors is when you use it as a thought partner, when you outsource your thinking to AI, or you let AI shape your voice and make choices for you. I think a part of the struggle of early stages of writing, where you have to like really think hard about finding the right words to convey your thoughts, is also how you figure out a what you're trying to say, and two, that is when your unique, imperfect, rough, and uneven but very human voice takes shape. So it's like when you decide to run a marathon, it's not because you're trying to get to the finish line somehow. On race day, you don't drive a car to the finish line and feel like, okay, job done. You train for months and months, and on race day, you run the actual distance through pain, through agony, with motivation, because there is something that you learn about yourself. It does something to the human spirit, and that's what writing a book is, or writing regularly in any form is. It's a triumph of your own abilities. And so that is how I think that use AI as a scaffolding, but not as a ghostwriter. Nidhi.
Amazing. Yeah, that's, I think, very useful. Yes, Nidhi.
Yeah, I asked Shraddha the same question the other day because she works with writers directly. And it is something that bothers, I think, a lot of us who are quite old school and we love people at least owning their words, if nothing else. You have help on everything else. But having said that, I'd also like to talk about two examples I can think of where AI has helped in making your books better. One is of one of our books on environment, which was done by an expert in the field, but a simple typo made one of the dates off by 10 years. Now these are books which are going to go to schools, and obviously our editors cannot sit and check or fact proof everything. Even with the best of them, when we have done proofreading, for example, those results are very good in bringing out these kind of inconsistencies, and in 10 seconds, where someone else would take a long time, okay, finding this and finding that. So, definitely on the part of proofreading and fact checking, as well as some amount of illustration work where we've seen in some of our books, and something a person has mentioned here, that youngsters these days are using AI in their day-to-day reporting. We all know, as much as I wish Shraddha is absolutely spot on, our young people are reading more, but the world of reading is changing for these guys. I have two young daughters at home whose default setting is to find everything online. So for this audience, if we have to keep reading going, we need it vibrant, illustration heavy, a lot of visuals, which will take a lot more time. And honestly, there's a cost associated with it. So if you can churn out more books where you still as a human intervention are looking at what prompts are going, what are you creating, but if it's helping you come out with faster, hundreds of iteration offering that, okay, I'll just try, no, I don't want this, I want that kind of thing. To that extent, yes, AI has been very useful for certain aspects of publishing, but I absolutely agree, however flawed, however imperfect, but your own writing is your own. At the end of the day, you have to sleep well with your book. So if you're going to just have it come out completely from AI, I don't know if you would be happier. Maybe the book may go on to do whatever, but yeah.
No, 100%. I just have one last question from my end, and I think we can take one or two questions from the audience if the time permits. But basically, for anybody listening right now who's convinced that they can write a book, how can they actually start their publishing journey? And this question is to Nidhi.
Yes, so it depends on where you are. Do you have a first ready draft? If yes, then you can approach, you have to decide, can I go directly to a publisher? I don't want to change anything here. I'm not looking for very big inputs. I'm not looking for someone say, hey, go and redo this because it's not reading well. If you have only an idea, which is also a very fair place to start, then you need a book coach who gets that idea out of you, builds it into something that's worthy of a book. And people like Shradha offer that at an industry expertise level. Publishers like us do that as well. We have this whole spread of services from the first moment you feel I have something in my mind. If you have already put it on paper, in editing, we spoke about, it's not just finding faults. Someone once told me you're good at editing because you always find faults in things very well. So unfortunately, I realized, not being a book writer or some, from this industry, that editing's very limited role is just finding faults and correcting them. But a very large part is also development editing, which is reading the book like a reader, not write like a writer. So it'll ask you, you spent, like we've done that in our books. Our editors have said, you spent 3 pages talking about this one aspect, but then decide to give just one paragraph to another similarly important point. And why is that? So then the author goes back and rewrites, and it enhances the value of the product being read. So very simply, I'd say if you have an idea, approach one of the publishers. We have people like us, say this is where I am, approach someone like Shraddha if you still want to develop it and start from that step as well, or you want to go for curated editing. We do end-to-end publishing. There are others as well in the industry. You can very well go ahead and share your manuscript, I'd say, and see where it takes you. People offer all kinds of services depending on how much you want to get in depth with one, whether it's editing. Someone asked about designing. So design, layouting, typography, all of this is part of your publishing process to make the book print ready. And these services are being offered by enough and more publishers, including ourselves at Apricity, as well as people like Shraddha who are book coaches and can guide you on that idea and take it forward from there.
So I just wanted to bring in the last aspect of this conversation, which was essentially we have a very selected talent pool that we cater to at Wisdom Circle. So, we have planned with Nidhi and Shraddha, we've planned some special offerings. So either of you, whoever wants to go first and share that, we can then take it from that.
I can go first. I see that a lot of questions are buzzing in the chat. I'm sorry we are unable to address all of them because of lack of time, but I am offering only for Wisdom Circle members 7 free connect calls for 20 minutes. So if any of you want to talk to me directly one-on-one, I have opened some slots over the next 4 days, and I'm going to talk to the first 7 people who register to answer any of your questions from anything that Nidhi or I covered today, or something outside of what we covered today. So, Mansi will share a link with all of you to sign up. And if you can't find a time that works for you, just fill in the form. I will reach out and we'll figure out a time when we can speak. So, happy to, answer your questions before you get started.
Lovely. I hope all of you make good use of that opportunity. All right. And from my end, as a publisher at Apricity, so we came up with this idea about how we've had this session, but a lot of you may feel motivated right now, but then you may lose the enthusiasm, or you may again have some self-doubt come in, or someone said, I don't have time. So here's an offer where you can't use any of these excuses, and it should kind of jumpstart you into this journey. We would love to publish an anthology of entries from Wisdom Circle community, absolutely free. There is a form which Mansi will share. And the theme is something I was very glad to see the responses. Most of you have spoken of that. So the theme for this particular book is things I wish I knew as a teen, or / you can think of it as notes to my teen itself, a heart-to-heart note from industry leaders across the world. So like I said, it may feel to you that I don't have anything which will sell. It's something useful for a lot of people. But as a publisher which works very actively with young people, I'm very mindful of the dilemma that they face, especially in today's constantly changing world. Different industries, they can align themselves with different courses they can pick up. Any advice that you would have up to 1,000 words from your lived experience. And I think I should stay away from the word advice, because our editorial team has also been very clear in saying it should not be preachy. It should be light, relatable, powerful, your own character-driven stories. We are not looking to, tell young people moral lessons or comparison between generations, or what may seem like judgmental. But when you're telling your own story, the story will itself be the lesson. So we're quite convinced about it. Writing 1,000 words is going to be an easy start, I feel. So go ahead and take that, have a dash at it. We are looking at entries from all of you. Hopefully a very good mix from people across different industry lines. Don't think about where you're coming from. Would love to kind of pull this together. And as publishers, it's our promise to take it to young people. We run lit fests across schools, across colleges very regularly. Very keen to bridge this gap between the wisdom of this group and how our young people can use it. So that's the offer from us at Apricity.
Thank you so much, both. I think this is a lovely opportunity for anyone who wants to start writing and also maybe publish a book in terms of an anthology, which Apricity is doing. So thank you so much. I'm so sorry that we couldn't take a lot of questions at the end, but we will definitely try to compile all of these questions, send it to the speakers, and get you the answers as soon as possible. I have attach 2 forms in the chat, which I will also be sharing over email later on, wherein you can block some time with Shradha for a one-on-one with her, or submit your proposal for the anthology. So yeah, look forward to getting amazing requests on both fronts. And I would like to once again thank Shraddha and Nidhi for their time. And we are actually on time. So yeah, no, thank you so much. And hopefully, if we have enough and more interest from this group and generally Wisdom Circle community, we will love to have you back for a part 2 of this session.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much. Wonderful to speak to everyone, and how engaged this audience was. Really, it was so energizing to speak to all of you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. See you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.